It started with a single note, a trembling, hesitant sound that rose and fell in the still air of an empty auditorium, a sound that should have gone unnoticed, had it not carried the kind of emotion that could only come from a soul that had suffered, longed, and hoped all at once. The note came from a piano that gleamed under the stage lights, a grand instrument worth more than the life savings of the man who touched it. That man was Samuel, a janitor with worn-out shoes, calloused hands, and eyes that carried years of unspoken stories. He had no right to be near that piano, no reason to touch it. Yet that night, when the world had gone silent and everyone had gone home, his trembling fingers reached for the keys. And in that quiet, something beautiful and forbidden was born. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the unseen beauty within ordinary people, then please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Ripple Tales, because stories like this remind us that greatness often hides in the humblest of hearts. Samuel had worked at Crestwood Academy for 7 years, mopping marble floors and polishing brass door handles that gleamed like trophies he would never win. The academy wasn't just a school. It was an empire of privilege. Sons of CEOs, daughters of diplomats, children of wealth and legacy, all walked its halls with heads high, their laughter echoing through corridors Samuel cleaned after dark. To them, he was invisible, a shadow with a mop, a man whose name they didn't know but whose reflection shimmered faintly in their polished world. He didn't mind, not really. He'd learned long ago that respect was a luxury not everyone could afford. What mattered to him was the music. Every day, as he swept the auditorium, he'd pause for a moment to listen. There was always someone practicing, violins whispering, flutes crying, or the grand piano sighing under the graceful touch of a student named Emily Davenport. Emily was the daughter of one of the Academy's biggest donors, a girl whose name carried weight and whose presence turned heads. She was talented, yes, but more than that, her music had a sincerity that reached even the janitor in the corner. She played like she meant it, and for a man like Samuel, who'd given up on most things, that music felt like a lifeline. But what no one knew, not even Emily, was that Samuel once dreamed of music himself. Decades ago, before his life unraveled, he'd played the piano in small bars, church halls, and neighborhood gatherings. His mother used to say he had the fingers of an angel. Then came the accident, a factory collapse that crushed his left hand and killed his younger brother. After that, Samuel stopped playing. The world demanded survival, not dreams. So he traded keys for cleaning rags, melodies for silence, and dreams for practicality. Still, every night as he swept the auditorium floor, the piano called to him, soft, patient, forgiving. And one evening, when a storm raged outside and the world seemed to forget the man mopping the marble, Samuel finally gave in. He set the mop aside, dried his shaking hands, and lifted the piano lid. Dust sparkled in the beam of a single spotlight. He hesitated, then pressed one key. The sound was pure. It vibrated through his bones. He pressed another, then another. And before he knew it, he was playing. Hesitant at first, then with a growing confidence that startled even him. His fingers, though rough and stiff, remembered. The notes spilled out like tears. A melody stitched from loss and love and everything he never said. What Samuel didn't know was that Emily had returned to retrieve her forgotten music sheets. She froze at the door, the sound of her own piano echoing through the empty hall, but not under her touch. She hid in the shadows, listening. The man at the piano wasn't playing any known piece. It wasn't Mozart or Chopin. It was something raw, something born from pain and beauty entwined. And in that moment, Emily realized the janitor wasn't just cleaning floors. He was cleaning the dust off his soul. When the last note lingered and fell silent, Samuel sighed and closed the lid, his eyes glistening. He turned to leave, and that's when he saw her, standing by the door, clutching her sheet music, eyes wide with shock and something else. Respect. He froze, heart racing, his face turning pale. He expected anger, embarrassment, maybe even a complaint. But Emily said nothing. She walked toward the piano, her heels clicking softly, and without a word, she lifted the lid again. She sat beside him on the bench. Then she began to play. Slowly, carefully, she matched his melody, filling the spaces his stiff fingers couldn't. Samuel hesitated. Overwhelmed, but she smiled. not the smile of a rich girl pitying a poor man, but of one musician recognizing another. Together they created something extraordinary. 2 lives, 2 worlds blending in harmony. When they finished, Emily whispered, "You play beautifully." Samuel tried to apologize, but she shook her head. "You don't understand," she said softly. That was the most real music I've ever heard." Then she did something no one expected. She asked him to play again, in front of everyone. Samuel refused, terrified. He was a janitor, not a performer, but Emily was determined. The next week, she went to the headmaster and proposed an idea for the annual spring recital. A performance of unity, she called it. It would celebrate the hidden talents within the academy, from students and staff alike. The headmaster laughed at first, but Emily's father, intrigued by his daughter's passion, agreed. The night of the recital arrived. The auditorium was packed with students, parents, and faculty. The chandeliers glimmered like stars, and whispers filled the air. Samuel stood backstage, trembling in a borrowed suit Emily had insisted he wear. His hands were sweating, his mind screaming for escape. What if they laughed? What if he failed? Then he saw Emily in the wings, giving him a reassuring nod. "Play like you did that night," she'd told him earlier. "Play like no one's watching." The curtain rose. The spotlight found him. The crowd gasped. The janitor? What was he doing on stage? A few chuckles rippled through the audience. But Samuel sat down, took a deep breath, and began to play. The first note silenced the room. The melody was the same one he'd played that stormy night. Haunting, pure, and heartbreakingly beautiful. Every note told his story, of lost dreams, broken years, and quiet resilience. His left hand, though imperfect, danced with surprising grace, while his right carried the melody like a confession. By the time the final chord faded, there wasn't a sound in the room. No laughter, no whispers, only stillness and the kind born from awe. Then came the applause. It started with a single clap, Emily's. Then another, until the entire auditorium rose to its feet. Some students had tears in their eyes. Teachers looked at each other, humbled. The janitor, the man they'd passed every day without a glance, had just given them the performance of a lifetime. After the recital, reporters wanted his story. The academy offered to fund piano lessons for him, and a small scholarship fund in his brother's name. But for Samuel, the greatest reward was simpler. It was Emily's friendship. And the fact that for the first time in decades, he felt seen. Weeks later, as he cleaned the hall again, the same piano waited in the dim light. But this time, a small brass plaque had been added to it. It read, "For Samuel Carter, who reminded us that talent has no title." He stood there for a long time, running his fingers over the letters, his eyes misting. The auditorium was empty, but he could almost hear the echo of applause again. Not for the janitor, but for the man who refused to let life silence his music. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Ripple Tales. And let this story remind you that kindness can bridge worlds, and that second chances can come from the unlikeliest places. Special request. Tell us in the comments, what would you have done if you heard a janitor play a song that moved your soul? Your words might inspire someone who's forgotten their own melody.